Coming to you from the Loading Ready Run orbiting underground moon base, it's the LRRcast.
Woo.
Hey, Graham here.
Alex.
Cameron here.
And today we're talking about girth.
I'm for it.
Length is more important.
Oh, okay. Right, we're talking about length. That's what we're talking about.
Well, actually, length versus... I mean, if we just wanted to start this off with a penis metaphor,
We're talking about,
I was going to use food, but...
oh, okay. We're talking about video games.
Shaped like a tuna can.
We're talking about video games
Yeah.
that are shaped like a tuna can.
well, because a couple of games have come out
Yeah.
that have caused this sort of reaction, like Firewatch, Super Hot.
Well, even things like
It's not a new thing either.
No, it's not new.
Dear Esther, I remember a few years ago got a lot of flack for being
It's just
like,
sort of fresh again.
yeah.
It's fresh again because of a couple of titles. It's the sort of relationship between ticket price and length and or quality of experience as it relates to video game or video games. And it's interesting because, in my opinion, I'm less concerned about how long something is and more concerned about how good it is. So I'm only too happy to spend, $30 on Super Hot, which I haven't even finished, but I'm positive I'm going to get my money's worth. Or like something like 30 Flights of Loving, which I spent like $5 or $10 on, and it was over in 15 minutes, and I loved it
Yeah.
so much.
Well, the game that
Excuse me.
does this for me recently has been Journey, right? Which
Yeah.
is maybe like 2.5 hours long
Yeah.
in a single playthrough and is has stuck with me for like 3 years now.
Oh yeah,
Right.
I mean, Pika got it tattooed on her ribs.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's super replayable too,
Yeah.
which I think is a relevant aspect of the discussion. But yeah, it's something that I want to make really clear right away, though, is that when we're talking about sort of the cost to length discussion, is that we are not trying to make opinions on your personal budget. Because I got some flack for that when I was talking about Firewatch.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying I'm not saying $20 is nothing. Right? I'm not saying you should be able to spend $20. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
The problem I had with people's reactions to Firewatch was the notion that 4 or 5 hours cannot be worth an $18 ticket price.
Yeah, that's not cool.
That I have issue with because it's only video games that I'm aware of. I'm open to other things.
Excuse me. Sorry. Yeah, like video games do encounter this issue a lot, and they have this weird relationship between playtime and sort of play quality. And I don't know, like some people really they want a particular ratio of cost versus hours they can put into this game.
Yeah.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
It's just like, especially if you maybe don't have a lot of disposable income
for sure.
per game. You want to invest in something that's going to give you tons and tons and tons of entertainment. And, there's a lot of games that sort of skew these sort of comparisons. So, like, for myself, I spent $30 on Super Hot, which is probably going to be done in 2 hours. I spent about a third of that on Minecraft, which I've probably logged hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. And I like both those experiences.
Yeah, and even recent releases, you look at Fallout 4,
Yeah.
right? Like Fallout 4 is, I don't even know how much time I've logged in that, and will log more when the DLC comes out, or just even playing it again. I mean, I'm doing a Let's Play of it right now.
Yeah.
And then, compared to Firewatch, which is $18, and I was finished in a little over 4 hours. I intend to play it again as it happens, but, it's... The comparison I like to make when people were, because I was having these discussions, was like, do you think it's, like, how can you say that 4 hours is worth $18? And I'm like, well, that's only $5 more than a movie.
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
If I think it's the problem is looking at it in a vacuum, right? Where I'm looking at money for entertainment, right?
Yeah.
And I would rather spend $18 on a 4-hour video game than $14 on an hour long or hour and a half long movie. Having said that, when you look at movies, that debate never comes up, right?
Well, because they're all loosely the same.
It's $15 whether the movie is
90 minutes or
90
like
minutes
2.5 hours.
2+ hours. Yeah, like it's the same price for Spectre or the Avengers as it is for like a short little indie thing.
Which is interesting. I guess in a sense that experience is largely standardized because you pay your about $15 for your about 2 hours. And a lot of people will use that standard to compare it to video games. And I don't know that that's necessarily something that you can do it, but I think that's missing a lot of the picture.
Yeah, I mean, I use that, again, as I'm talking about, like, use of my personal entertainment budget, right? It's like, I don't think $18 for 4 hours is that crazy when you look at the other ways I spend my money. But within the vacuum of video games, I can understand that looking at the history, that it is a little weird. Something that someone said to me that I found kind of fascinating was that discussions of length versus cost is an integral part of video game criticism, which I disagree with the premise, but they brought up that going back to Nintendo Power and GamePro and print video game publications were always like the game costs this much and the playtime is this long, and so there's this sort of ingrained thing that there is a correlation between cost and playtime, which I don't think there should be, but I know that there is precedent for it, and I'm curious why. I don't know why it started.
Well, I think that might have been, like, going back to those early publications, they didn't have a whole lot of basis or a lot of experience with video games and ways of critiquing them and engaging with them. So
it's still a pretty new medium.
Yeah, and so that may have just been a very concrete way of engaging in criticism with games in a way that was meaningful to consumers.
Like, was it good? Oh, well, it was like 30 hours. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so that good.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's... was it on Hey Ash, What You Playin'? Where they had the discussion about, like, at that rate, Paul Blart Mall Cop is at least 10 times as good as, anything else because it's so long, and this experience was like this long. And that's a very reductive argument, but it was coming from the very reductive father character.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that may have just been like, well, we don't know how to criticize games yet, so this at least takes up some of our word count.
I don't even know that the idea of criticism necessarily even entered their heads.
Yeah, well, like, criticism is, like, there's criticism as is kind of like on a consumer level, which we think of, like with movie reviews, right? Where it's like, this movie was good or it was bad and it had like this problem or, it succeeded here. But criticism in the sense that I'm used to in like on an academic level is about, something's role in culture. And when you criticize something, you are engaging with it, right? You were talking about it, you are...
Yeah. I feel like that sort of assessment is something that's happening more often now. Whereas maybe previously the assessment was more of a kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like you said, on a consumer level. It's just like, well, how long can you drive this car till the wheels fall off? How safe is it? Which is utterly valid.
Yeah. Right?
There's, this isn't even related to the sort of the cost versus length debate, but there has been, in the past 5 or 6 or 7 years, there's been a lot of sort of change in that regard in video game criticism, and a lot of sort of backlash to it of readers being like, no, we don't care what this game makes you feel, we want to know if it's good. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I've
right.
literally read that comment.
Yeah.
Right?
And, you get people, game critics saying like, no, this is the job of the critic to look at the media through this lens and see, obviously what is enjoyable about it and what is not enjoyable about it, but also sort of where it fits in the whole medium and what it is trying to say and all that. Not simply that it has 4 times anti-aliasing and that it looks really sweet and that the sound is awesome. Like there's
a lot more
to it than just like all that stuff is relevant as well, right? It's important that the game looks good and sounds good and plays well and
technically
all that.
accomplished.
But there's also room for discussion of
Well,
feed.
I'll tell you, I think that video game criticism has added a lot more axes along which things can be assessed. Whereas before it was just like, length of playtime, graphics, gameplay, soundtrack.
Right.
Like you would assess the games.
When I was doing the reviews for the Game Boys,
back
in I told you about this. I used to do video game reviews in late high school for a website called The Game Boys with a Z. Yeah. It's still around. You can probably find some of my old reviews. And we did the scoring on the graphics, the sound, the gameplay, and then the what do they call it? Like the reviewers tilt, like the fun factor. Like it was, like sort of, it was built in like a skew based on how much I enjoyed it.
Okay.
And then the final score was reduced from those things, and it was like that's it, right? Oh, my mic is rubbing. I'm sorry.
But yeah, like with the sort of advent or proliferation of more sort of storytelling games that are more sort of designed to give you interesting, new, different, weird experiences that are sometimes not even necessarily fun in the way that a game, for the exact definition of it, would make you feel. Like some video games that come out now, they're meant to make you feel sad or to feel hopeful or to be drawn into a mystery or something. And how do you assess that based on the metrics by which you would compare something like, I don't know, Mega Man?
Right.
It's like, there's no jumping in this game, it sucks.
Right, yeah.
It's all about feelings. But, I mean, I do get really exhausted hearing the sort of, backlash against this. But, I mean, you're right. People, I think, are used to assessing games by a certain set of metrics. And for their own personal uses, those are the metrics that they value and that they want to assess games by.
Right.
I mean, I still kind of think it's narrow-minded.
Well, yeah.
To not be able to see beyond your own perspective. But
well, and I think this is probably just a function of the gaming maturing as a medium, where a lot of new experiences are possible. And suddenly, every game that is reviewed at like a 9 out of 10, aside from being like objectively excellent or outstanding, right, from a technical standpoint, or from a standpoint of like accomplishing its objectives, might not be for you, right? And like there was that one Penny Arcade comic years and years ago where that was basically the punchline, right? And it's like, right, it's not for you, they said, of their own comic. But we don't all enjoy the same things, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? The idea that like Firewatch is not even remotely the same experience as like the new COD game, right? Like they're both enjoyable, right? And maybe they're not for the same audience, and that's okay.
And I find it very interesting that the question of length only gets brought up for like, it seems to only get brought up for certain games when it's not really comparable in a lot of other cases. You look at like a new JRPG and it's going to be 60, 70 hours.
That's
just because that's how long a JRPG is meant to be. But you look at, as you say, the new Call of Duty game, it'll have a single player campaign that's
nobody plays.
That's like 6 or 7 hours, maybe, and a multiplayer component that is functionally infinite, until they shut the servers down. And so there's sort of these expectations by genre of kind of like how long something is going to be. Like you don't like sports games, you can just keep playing them whenever. But you look at I'm trying to think of a single player like an Assassin's Creed game. How long do they usually? 12 hours? I know
I
Paul has
imagine
more
so.
experience than I do.
Depends on how excited you are about the
side
the
quests.
side quests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Assassin's
that's-
Creed games are full of side stuff.
Like the piracy one, you could
But-
go around just doing stuff forever, basically, right?
Well, I mean, that's actually, I mean, just to butt in.
Yeah, please.
What do you, like, you're talking about how, movies and, other things aren't sort of held to the same, that aren't evaluated over that particular thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to me that video games are one of the only mediums where there is, for, $60, you can buy a 5-hour game, or you can buy a 100-hour game.
Yeah.
Like nobody else is, like, if you go to a movie and you pay your $14 or whatever, which I think probably says more about
the exchange
bad,
rate.
the bad cost
Yeah.
for movies as opposed to the good cost for video games. But
Yeah.
anyway, you go to a movie, and if it's a 15-minute movie, you're pissed off.
Yeah, if it was 15 minutes.
Like
sure.
you're mad. Nobody does a 15. Like if you have there's shorts,
Yeah.
but they're ganged together and put together, or like there's
Right.
something like
I don't
nobody.
think I've ever seen a movie in theaters that was less than 80 minutes.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
and often like I've actually seen
And that felt short.
I've seen like especially animated films, but often will really be tight in terms of time, and I've seen that being criticized in reviews, like being like not like excessively, but just saying it's it limps across the line at
Yeah.
an hour
Yeah.
and 15 minutes or something.
And I don't think that's bad to say, even for video games. It's the what bothers me, and I know it bothers Alex, and I assume it bothers Cam. I'm just speaking for you. Is when the reviews or the criticism comes in that it's like this game is however long, so it's not worth the price.
Yeah.
Right.
and-
Well, I remember
Because,
that.
as you say, I'm sorry.
no,
as
go.
you
That-
say,
yeah.
video games are the only thing really where you can spend $60 for a 7-hour game or an 80-hour game, and so in that way, I think video games more so shouldn't really worry about the length so much as Alex said, the quality of the experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's sort of a minimum cutoff that people feel. Like,
Yeah,
and I think, and once especially, if you're talking like a full price game, I mean, things have gotten more interesting now with digital distribution and cheaper games and stuff. But if we're talking a 60-hour game or $60 game, once it gets down below, 5 hours, that's definitely, I would consider that a detriment to the game.
Yeah.
Just again in terms of price performance ratio.
You
Like the 5 hours has got to be amazing for that to be worthwhile.
Well, and I think like the meal analogy you used.
yeah, I was
the other
talking
day.
with some people
yeah.
about this on
Yeah,
Twitter.
and it's like I will quite frequently go out and spend $15 on a meal that is just like I am really hungry right now and I need something before I have to be at this place.
Yeah.
Right, and I'll go to Noodle Box.
Yeah.
Right, and buy like a $12 or $13 like thing.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, right, you get some cash and you're like,
Let's go crazy.
yeah, I'm going out and I'm getting like something really nice, and that might be like $40.
Yeah.
And-
you eat it in 30 minutes and it becomes poop.
Yeah, and like you're comfortable spending that extra money, but it has to have a performance payoff, right?
Yeah, and the performance payoff is like how exquisite that food is.
Yeah.
And if you get food that's crappy for that price, you're pissed.
Yeah, exactly, and I
Right.
think justifiably so.
Yeah. It's interesting.
But like you wouldn't review the food based on like
But
you like.
I guess time to eat the food is
Time
not
to
really
eat
one,
is not
it's
the
not really
metric,
one of the
but, like,
axes that we
Yeah.
measure
Yeah, no,
food
it would
on.
be like, this food was not worth it because it was only like 600 calories, and when I spend this much money, I expect like
Yeah,
at least
yeah.
900.
portion size. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
there are extreme cases where you're like, this is $25.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
when you have to
for-
go out
for
for a
this?
burger after your $25 food, that's annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that would be valid, but it's like, that price performance ratio does exist.
Yeah.
and I think is a valid point to a large extent, but sometimes it's not the main point.
Yeah. What I find really interesting when I read a lot of these negative reviews is sometimes the person will say, this game was amazing, it was innovative, I had a blast playing it, it looks great, it sounds great, I can't recommend it, it's too short.
Yeah,
And
I've seen those reviews on Steam.
That sounds crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's like, you loved it, but you don't think it's worth the price.
Like,
I'm
I think at worst you can, like, call that out and
Just
be
be like, it's a little pricey.
So this is it'll be about this length, and just let people make their own decision rather than I can't recommend it because it's short. I think that's
It's like,
that's very strange to me.
It is very strange because it's like you just got through saying that this experience was amazing to you. So how do you say that and then immediately turn around to say, but it wasn't worth it?
Yeah.
It feels
Well, I mean, like
peculiar to me.
that's just a statement on valuing that experience, right? Like if innovative, interesting, enjoyable, those are all positive things. But if at the end of the day you fundamentally don't value them, right?
I guess
That would be why you aren't recommending the game.
it's weird though. But like, why bring those up if length is all you care about?
Well, so an example of it in a different way, game Monument Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, really great game.
Yeah.
Really disappointed me because I was having so much fun playing it, and then it ended way, way earlier than I felt it should have. Like I was like, that was a lot of fun, but it was like 2.5 hours, and like I was cool with the like hour that I spent doing all the tutorial stuff because I assumed that would be like paying off more than it did, and
Right.
that time was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Such that I'm now incredibly disappointed that I don't have more fun to play.
Yeah, I guess there is an aspect
Like-
of it was too short and I wanted more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like it's not. I'm not mad at. I'm not saying that it's not a good deal. You know, it wasn't very expensive or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I would like it was a $5 game or whatever. I would rather it was a $20 game and 4 times as long.
Yeah.
I guess maybe.
I mean, I definitely, in the case of Monument Valley, I felt the same way. I felt it was totally worth what I paid for it. But when I beat it, I was like, oh,
yeah.
I really want more.
You know,
'Cause it
maybe,
was great.
maybe it's the sort of sensation of
You should check it out, by the way.
You start your exquisite pint, and after your first sip, someone slaps the glass out of your hand and says it's closing time. And you're like, come on, man.
I just had a little bit, and I want
It's
the
like
rest
you're
of it.
done. So yeah,
You
that
would give a bad Yelp review for that.
red
It's like
thumbstick.
Bartender slapped my
delicious
pint out.
beer slapping bartender.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just like, it was really good. I want to have more of it, but every time I buy one, he just slaps it away. It's a weird bar.
Why do I keep going back there? It's good beer, I guess.
So yeah, like this weird subjective and also in some ways objective ways that we assess this brave new medium. It's very, very unusual.
And it's not to say that, I mean, we talk about video games being new, right? And movies are only a little over 100 years old. But video games have, I would say video games have evolved more in their
in their
25, 30 years than movies have since like the language of cinema was sort of, locked in pretty early. But people are still doing amazing experimental things with film. It's not to say like, all right, movies
are solved.
Movies are it's not to say that, but I think that there's been more changes over the years from what you can do from a video game than to now. Like the idea of being able to do anything emotional with a video game was laughable even 10 years ago.
like law game of failings.
Not
It's
that
like,
people weren't doing it, not that there aren't older games that are emotional, but general consensus was they were not perhaps as effective.
yeah.
And so I think that game critique, hasn't quite kept up, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's up to people to find the type of criticism that they want that's going to assess things along the metrics that they care about?
Well, it definitely is. I mean, you get all that, like every single game review ever has, like, no matter who the source is, from any site has comments that the review was not what that commenter wanted, right? And so, it definitely is on readers to find the sort of thing that they're into, and if they just want, hard technical facts, or they just want graphical information, or they just want length, or
it's like, all I care
or
about is
they want-
system specs.
or they want
like balance and multiplayer.
yeah, or
Right.
they want stuff on theme. Then there's people for that, right? There's a critic out there for you
Somewhere.
somewhere, and I think that I don't know. I think reducing it to any single thing is bad. But what brought this on obviously was the whole length discussion. Again, not saying that I'm not trying to dictate that you have to spend your money in ways that we think are valid. It's more just that I find the whole sort of like 4 hours is not worth $18 was like.
I thought it was.
I pay $15 to draft Magic for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
You end up with a bunch of garbage.
Yeah.
Sometimes we lose round one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll pay $35 to go and see an artist perform, to see a musician perform live, and that's music I already own, right?
But now you can listen to it with people wooing over top of it.
Yeah.
Music is funny too
You can
because
get bottled.
you. We went to see. This is a major tangent. We actually, Paul and I went to see a comedian in town, Lauren Elliott, and he had some new stuff that we hadn't heard, and he had a couple sort of like of his standby bits, and it was sort of like, oh yeah, I do enjoy those bits, but I've heard them, and from a comedy perspective, that's comedy is the unexpected. So it's like, oh, I mean, I guess it's nice to hear him say it in person, but it's whatever. But if you go to a music show and they don't play the hits, you're pissed.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Wonderwall or
You
Riot.
talk about getting bottled.
I remember us making that observation afterwards. And sort of like, oh, that's weird. It's like mediums are different.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I guess what people expect out of mediums, and even like as specific as genres, is different. Like you said, like if you made a JRPG that was 3 hours long, people would just pan it.
I don't know how you would even do that.
I know, right?
The boss fight is 3 hours
you'd make
long.
Undertale.
Right. Like they would, but it's it's a JRPG. There's all this like groundwork you have to set up.
Well, I mean, the sort of structure formula of a JRPG presupposes a lot of things, and one of them is an extraordinarily long length.
Well, this is another reason why game criticism and movie criticism is not comparable. Because
it's
movies, different genres, right? Like a Western versus an action movie. You can discuss, like this is like, hey, this is an action movie. There's going to be, car chases and guns and explosions and stuff, and they're all great. And you look at a horror movie, and it's like, you're going to be scared, or it's going to be really, really creepy and insidious. But the delivery method is, roughly 90 minutes, and some are shot better than others, and some have better music than others. But in video games, the genre dictates massive changes to the presentation and the delivery method and how you experience it. That like a JRPG has to be a certain thing, and it's going to be 8 hours long, or a sports game is it's probably going to be online. It's going to be infinitely replayable until they kill the servers, etc.
It's really interesting you mention movies being assessed on genre, because if you looked at, say, a drama and you're like, there weren't any explosions or shooting in this, it sucks. So if you took the metric by which you assess an action movie and applied it to a different genre, it wouldn't work. And maybe the same is true of video games. If you're just like, I'm expecting to get the kind of experience I would want out of like a AAA shooter out of this indie game, and it doesn't measure up because it's the wrong yardstick to be comparing it by.
Well, I mean, the similar thing is when you look at reviews of like action movies where people are like, there are all these problematic things in it, and the response is, well, I mean, it's a just dumb action movie,
Well,
right? And like,
there's dumb, and then there's
there's-
just functionless,
yeah, exactly.
which is
Well,
maybe,
but
maybe
it's
a
also
different
totally,
discussion,
it's
but-
also, yeah, it's a different thing probably, but it's also totally fair to critique something on that. That's what we
Oh,
were
yeah.
talking about, the whole thing with critique, right?
Yeah, it's like
It's not just about, is it good?
no.
Is it good?
Well, there are many different ways of being good.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. That like there's ways of evaluating success.
Yeah.
Right. And if the objectives, that's something, like if something's objectives aren't what interest you, then it almost cannot be successful.
Yeah, and I think that relates directly to what Alex was saying with genre, and I think a lot of it is expectation, because I was watching someone stream Firewatch, and this drove me nuts.
Oh.
The first stash, what are they called?
No, the supply cache.
Right, the first supply cache, right? You go to the supply cache, and there's a radio prompt to talk about the cache. There's a radio prompt to talk about a thing on the inside of the lid. There's like
the little piece
a
of
thing.
paper.
And inside there's a granola bar and a rope, both of which have radio prompts where you can talk to,
Yeah.
where you can radio into Delilah and talk about the granola bar and talk about the rope and all that stuff. And this person was just like, open the cache, got the granola bar, got the rope, great. All right, now.
Right. Like the
And-
BioShock Infinite.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's like, got to grab the stuff and get going to the objective.
I
And it's-
feel that
but
people
it's-
get screwed over by expectations.
They absolutely do, because the point in that game is to talk and take your time and experience these conversations.
Because-
and how would they know?
Yeah, well, because I went into that game expecting what I expect of storytelling games, having played and enjoyed them. So I did take my time to try and ferret out every last little bit of detail that I could. And yeah, I mean, maybe it's just the sort of teething pains of these new genres as they create, because you see a game like that, it's like, oh, it's a first-person something or other. So I got to flip all the switches, open all the doors, and shoot all the monsters. And then
Yeah.
you're like, there's no monsters, doors, or switches. What is this crap?
Yeah.
You're like, well,
it's different.
it's similar in perspective only.
yeah.
It's really trying to do something entirely different. That, I guess, I mean, it's fair that, it didn't meet your expectations.
Yeah.
Although, I guess I would caution people to, maybe broaden, your, I don't know, expectations, or just
Yeah.
like temper them based on, new information.
And like I have heard the argument that like disliking things that are interesting is really kind of like the mark of a child, right? And it's like that's a really harsh thing to say, and it came from somebody who like stirs the pot on this quite a lot.
Right.
Right? So it was like a deliberately like controversial way of phrasing it.
Yeah, that's, I would say needlessly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
needlessly. But she was like, sometimes her point was like, just try things that are outside your wheelhouse every once in a while, and do so with an open mind.
Maybe you won't like it anyway.
Yeah, maybe you won't like it anyway, and that's probably fine. But like, yeah, like it's nobody's going to shove Proust onto your nightstand, right, and tell you can't get out of bed until you finish
but
it.
we would prefer if you didn't say, like, Proust a shit because, it was too many words.
Yeah.
I guess that's sort of just what we want. It's just, maybe don't slag something off because it was not what you expected, or maybe something engineered that you would have liked it. Just, I don't know, I guess be more understanding of things that are not for you.
Well,
Just
like, and even that now I'm like,
I think that's, I don't think that's quite, I don't know, fair, because I think Firewatch, as the example again, could be for people if they are willing, right? Like, I had a discussion with someone who was like, well, I don't know, it seems awful short, and for $18. And I was like, I think the experience is really great. And they said, all right, you know what? Sure, I'll try it.
Yeah.
And then they got back to me and they were like, that was fantastic, thank you, right?
Okay.
And it's, I don't think I don't think just being like, well, it's probably not for you. I think it's more useful to say, like, this is
Yeah.
going to
It
be
could be
different.
for you.
This is
Yeah.
going to be different, and I think it deserves you trying it.
I
yeah,
guess
like,
it's sort of, from my own experience of like, there's at least a few games that I've encountered where I'm just like, this is really great, and it's not for me at all. Like, I think I feel that way about, well, like Five Nights at Freddy's. I was like, I love that this game exists. I think it's really clever and well designed. I never want to play it ever again as long as I live.
Yeah.
But I like that it exists. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of mediums are like this. Like My Little Pony, I feel that way. I like that it exists for, I mean,
For the people who
the
watch
people
it.
that, yeah, or maybe supposed to watch it.
I
But that's
didn't
its own
say the
thing.
intended
I know,
audience. I said the
but
people who watch it.
I'm maybe not going to sit down and actually watch it because it's for children.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, like,
It's not
The-
necessary.
that's
Yeah.
its own discussion.
Yeah.
But you know,
and
what
like,
I mean.
for you is not exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that's a useful way of
That's actually-
constructing it.
My Little Pony is actually a great example of why that's not the case, because it's for little girls,
Okay.
but adults
no,
can
you're,
still
no, you're
enjoy
right.
it,
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
right?
I guess maybe what you're getting at is just like it's different for everything that means. So
Yeah.
it's like you know,
The adults who enjoy My Little Pony would have had no reason to think that they would like it, right? It's a cartoon. It's in heavy air quotes from the intent. It's a cartoon for little girls, right? And there's no reason for them to have expected that they would enjoy it because it's not for them. But
they did.
they started watching it, and then they went, "Oh, you know what? This is totally
Friendship
different
is
and
magic."
outside what
Yeah.
I'm into, but
Well,
I
and-
actually like it."
And like extremely fertile things can happen when
Don't.
That was a bad segue.
Sorry. Continue.
when things move outside of their intended audience, because like in we talk about this thing like Death of the Author, that authorial intent is really a mirage, and it's really impossible to establish because a lot of the time the author is dead, has been dead for centuries, completely unknown maybe,
Right.
or they'll just lie to you. Like if you read interviews with the Coens, they just lie about what their movies are about. So like Don Quixote was a comedy when it was written.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You were supposed to laugh at how stupid Don Quixote is, right? He's a
Tilted
clown.
windmill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
look at this
he's a
idiot.
clown, right? And in a contemporary reading, we look at him and see like this kind of like really pathetic character who's very sad, right? But in his time, he was Homer Simpson, right? And the same thing with Falstaff from Shakespeare, right? Who was like this fat knight who's drunk all the time and who like, goes to brothels and gambles away all his money, and he finally dies penniless, and everyone's like, yeah, that's about right.
Like,
What
we-
a chump.
We see him as like sympathetic and
Yeah.
like
Oh,
this-
that poor man.
Yeah.
But at the time they were like,
Well-
what an idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And when you break away from the idea that something's interpretation is prescribed, then you can do all kinds of really weird and useful things with it, right? I'm trying to think of like a good example in video games. Where you just go off the rails. Like I've had a lot of fun in things like The Sims.
Oh, you mean like emergent gameplay?
Yeah, emergent
Oh,
gameplay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff.
Where it's like this is not well.
Minecraft
Like,
is wall to wall
Yeah.
emergent gameplay.
I mean, that's sort of in some ways it's intent, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like I have lots of fun in any game that gives me physics objects I can play with.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to.
Yeah,
It's
or
not designed to support that, but man, I love it.
like you hear about the playthroughs in Elder Scrolls games where people are just like, all right, got through the introduction, they've given me the breadcrumb to the main plot, I'm going to drop that item and I'm going to go and like buy
I'm
a
going
farm and
I'm going to go and I'm going to go and become a trader.
I
Yeah.
am going to collect every single cabbage
yeah,
in the world
Yeah.
and put it in my hut.
yeah,
Why? Because
yeah.
Because I am the.
because I can.
Because
I'm God.
I think
Yeah.
you'll find I am the Jarl of Whiterun. Or whatever the hell that meme
But
was.
like, and that's also kind of the way you break up like solved metas in Magic, right?
You come at it from a totally different angle
Right.
that nobody expects.
Yeah.
Just blindside everybody.
I was thinking that maybe there's an underserved niche in game criticism or reviews that's not so much talking about whether a game is good or bad, but more almost priming people, like sort of advocating for a game and getting people in the right mindset to play that game, sort of getting people to play a game in such a way that they will enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's like,
As opposed to saying, this is a good game, this is a bad game, being like,
Here's
this
what to expect.
Firewatch is a really neat game, not spoilering, not a spoiler, but just sort of being like, this is the kind of game it is.
Yeah, that's what I was doing on Twitter. I was being like, my recommendation to you for playing this, because people be like, so is it good? What do you like about it? And I just said, no. My recommendation is you play it, and you take your time. I said, take your time, use the radio anytime you can,
yeah.
and that's it.
Take all the photos.
Yeah, right, and it's just that's it. Just
Well, yeah, like in the way that an instruction manual for an OG style game would just be like, here's how you jump, here's what enemies there will be, here's what the power ups do. Just be like, this is a game about storytelling, in which you are meant to experience it in in this sort of way, and there's no rush, there's nothing that's going to kill you, or whatever, and just like kind of like you say, just like so people don't go into games with the wrong expectations and end up like what you were talking about, just like glomming all the items as fast as possible and like speed running through, because then they'll get to the end and just be like, oh, well that sucked.
unrelated. I would like to see a speedrun of Firewatch.
Firewatch. It's like, okay, we're gonna get splits here. If we don't answer this prompt from Delilah, we can save about 4 seconds.
I mean, probably, right? I assume the speedrun is because I heard about a run where you just don't talk. And the game changes drastically if you don't interact.
Sounds like the darkest timeline.
It sounds really grim, yeah. But I imagine that would be the speedrun version. It's just
Yeah.
I didn't find a single turtle on my playthrough.
I found a turtle. I named her Shelley Duvall.
There's 12
What
apparently.
do you mean 12?
There's a bunch of turtles, and you can collect them all in the turtle box.
I found one of the fucking raccoons.
I didn't find any raccoons.
I
found no wildlife. I need to play Firewatch again. I found no wildlife.
saw a butterfly. I took a picture.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of depth to that game that I think I've only barely scratched the surface of.
Right.
And it's all very subtle. And
You're making fun of Assassin's Creed with all its fetch quests and collecting things.
yeah, I guess it's
12
just,
turtles would be great for Assassin's Creed.
I don't know, maybe it's just like objectives that don't necessarily have a marker on them. It's
Well,
just
the one that I always enjoyed was the idea that you can take a game and you don't play it against the other players if it's a multiplayer game. You play it against the dev, right?
yeah.
And that's kind of where you see,
QC.
well, like half press A, right?
Oh,
or
man.
glitching out games,
That's.
I do enjoy those.
or hacking in multiplayer games.
ROM hacks.
Can I just
Right.
briefly?
But I just think that's really it. It's not for me because that's not necessarily what I play games for. But I totally get it. I get
Seen
it.
half press A?
No,
There's a complete digression, but this has blown Alex's mind.
I don't often become speechless when I watch, video game related speedruns, but this I can't even describe. I'll do my best. It's a category of speedrunning in the N64 title Mario 64. Which takes restrictions on gameplay and the glitches that enable that to literally another universe. Because they found ways to complete levels using as few presses of the A button as possible. The A button being the jump button.
Yeah.
So in the game about jumping, how do you beat it? Jumping the least. And there's levels they can beat without pressing it at all. And there's ones where they press it half a time.
And
Which is explained in the video.
There's a 25-minute video of the guy explaining what a half press is. and it's the what's the level?
I don't remember the name of it. Like
It's the
watch
cave.
for falling. Watch for falling
Rocks.
or rolling rocks. or
Rolling
something.
Rocks, right? Yeah, it's Rolling Rocks. So it's there's like a 25-minute video on YouTube of this guy explaining what a half A press is.
Yeah, look
and how
up
he beats
half
it.
A press on YouTube.
And it involves the alternate universe thing. Is it involves like teleporting, basically, like clipping through a wall to a copy that exists, a copy of the clipping and collision information for the level, but none of the geometry. So, but that's like away from the level. And so the camera's stuck in the level with the geometry, and he's moving around in the area that just is clipping and nothing, like way off in the distance. It's
you got to see this. To
it's some of
believe
the
it.
most nuts like abuse of
You'll watch it and
Mario
you'll
64
be
I've ever
like,
seen.
and then your jaw will just go
Yeah,
bonk, bonk, bonk. Anyway,
man,
were
talk
talking-
about emergent gameplay. Mario 64.
it's like you name a way to beat that game, people have figured it out.
I don't know what else we can talk about, really.
Well, I mean, yeah, like
I guess my point is that like this is a very young medium still, and it's starting to see a lot of breadth in what people are trying to do with it, and that's
I think it's terribly exciting.
It's tremendously exciting, and it'll lead to better games for all of us.
It will. It'll actually probably lead to better games, even if what you want is maybe something more classic.
Yeah, like
Right.
in biology, biodiversity is king, right?
Yeah,
That's how that's one of the metrics that have been proposed for measuring the health of an environment is biodiversity.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you may not end up enjoying a lot of these sort of like storytelling or experimental games, but the information that they collect may eventually become incorporated into a game that you really, really love later down the line.
Well, it's like how, one of the justifications of the space program is that, you don't necessarily know where the next MRI technology is going to come from, right? And so you put a lot of resources into just like pure science, and you can reap some really interesting results, right? The more exploration and the more sampling of a configurational space that you do, the weirder stuff you can find, and sometimes that stuff works shockingly well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, maybe do what you can to expand your horizons and, give things a chance.
In the short term,
Yeah.
check out Firewatch.
Oh, yeah. Firewatch and
Take your
Super
time.
Hot.
Take your time with it. You can.
Do not take your time with Super Hot.
No, you can play Firewatch multiple times with Super Hot. Even if they want, there's a free demo. I mean, not demo, but there's like the beta
Yeah,
game.
the jam game that it was based off of.
So check that out and see how rad it is, and then get Super Hot.
I haven't heard of Super Hot.
Super
Super
hot.
hot.
Super hot.
Hot. Super.
We'll
hot.
show you.
Okay.
It's time moves when you move.
Interesting.
Is the that's the gameplay. Time moves when you move.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's like a puzzle FPS.
Interesting.
almost.
So like a guy will shoot at you, and you stop moving, and the bullet is there, and you're like, okay, so I need to move like this, and it
right.
like zips past
Now
you.
I have seen this.
Yeah.
I've seen the
Yeah.
demo.
It's
They kickstarted it and it
the
just
levels are
was
all
released
like
yesterday.
the levels are all sort of
like ray traced or
bare white, and the people are red and geometric.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I have seen this. Yeah.
It's real fun.
Neat.
Anyway, so yeah, I don't know that we came to any sort of like
Hard conclusions, but
or cute takeaway, but I don't think that was necessarily the point.
yeah.
Hopefully you enjoyed the discussion. I'm sure
Yeah.
that many of you will have other discussions in the comments below. Feel free to do
Keep
so.
it clean.
Keep it clean. Keep it clean, everybody.
Ding,
But
ding.
yeah, thanks for listening to us. Muse on video games and their length. And until next time, remember that all of our podcasts, like this one, are brought to you by your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. So please check that out, and we'll talk to you next time.